What is up, y'all? Welcome to DC Daily. It is I, Sam the Hammer Humphreys. I am staying safe, staying home, and staying healthy, just like all of you. We are all in this together. We are not just doing this for ourselves, of course. We're doing it for all the vulnerable cuties and sweeties out there. And why? Because that's what Superman would do. That's right. I am here with one of my favorite cutie sweeties. He is a writer who has touched every corner of the DC universe. This summer, he is launching his sequel to the blockbuster Dark Knight's Metal with Dark Knight's Death Metal. That's right, I'm talking about Scott Snyder. Scott, welcome to the show, bro. How you doing?
I'm great. Thanks for having me, Sam. It's a pleasure.
Dude, it's good to see your face again, man. It's been too long, and now it's crazy time. So, seriously, how are you doing? How are you hanging in there? What's going on up there?
Oh, thank you for asking. We're good. I'm learning how to homeschool the kids. They're here, sort of learning remotely, which is both. I always hear people saying it's wonderful to have them home, and it is. But we're also ready to murder and eat all of each other, I think, in this house. So it's a particular challenge, but I love them, and I am glad that we're here and safe. And I'm thrilled to be here, and I just hope that everybody out there, fans, retailers, everybody is staying safe, staying home, and just taking care of their loved ones.
And you, of course, have a medical professional in the house, isn't that right?
I do. Yeah. My wife. Yeah, and my father. So my father still takes the subway down to his hospital in New York City. We're really inspired by him. I'm proud of him. He's just a hero.
Well, yeah. All our gratitude to them and all the medical professionals right now.
Yeah, absolutely. I saw a cartoon yesterday on Facebook that was Superman and Batman and Spider-Man and Thor and welcoming the doctors in, and they're welcome to the club. And it's very true. So, everybody out there on the front lines, we really appreciate what you do, and thank you so much.
And here at us at home, we're all trying to figure out new ways to spend the time and be productive. Scott, have you dived into any of your classic DC favorites at this time?
I have a little bit. I went back and I reread New Frontier, the Darwin Cook, which is just one of my favorite books because I'm working on some stuff for post-metal right now that ties into sort of the idea of creating a big new take on classic characters. So I don't want to give too much away because it sort of says what I'm doing. But
that's right.
Some of the old war stories, Sergeant Rock stuff in particular too. So going back and finding some really fun classics that are inspiring for both their artistry, their vision, and the kind of heroism of the characters.
Yeah, I had to pull this one out the other day.
Oh, nice.
The Superheroes, Great Darkness Saga.
Oh, I love that.
Classic.
Absolutely.
I know. I've been reading this one for years and years. This one is actually, I don't know if you can see, but it's signed by Paul Levitz.
Oh, wow.
And he signed it to John, who owned this book before I did. So thanks, John.
I know. I would change my name to John at that point for it, right?
I'm in the process. It's just been slowed down by everything going on. Yes. But I will be John Humphreys soon. Have you taken up any unexpected hobbies? Have you found yourself interested in anything that you weren't pursuing before?
Well, we've taken up two things in the house, family-wise, that have been fun. We've started role-playing games. So I bought the Dungeons and Dragons starter kit, and my kids are actually really into it. So my little son is an elf, which I love. He's and we're just creating characters now. So that's been a blast. We did some of the pre-made campaigns, and now we're doing our own stuff. So that, and also for Christmas, I bought a 1980s. I found this company. They're great, actually. Dream Arcades. They make arcade machines that are actually hard drive computers, but they look like an 80s arcade game.
Oh, yeah.
And they're loaded with 200 classic games. So we have every night. I have a competition with my kids with a classic game. So right now we're playing this game that I just adore. Shinobi, the original one, and seeing who can get farther on one life. Oh no, dude, it's for real. We did Double Dragon, Streets of Rage 2, Streets of Rage 3. We did Rolling Thunder, which I love that game. I know that's like a deep cut, but for people of a certain age, Rolling Thunder, Silkworm.
Those are a lot more exciting. My new hobby is I'm pickling vegetables.
Oh, wow.
I never thought that I would do this. My vegetables are going bad, and somebody posted a recipe on Twitter. So here I am pickling, which is not something that I foresaw at all.
That's impressive, though, dude. That's good.
I feel like we've talked about this many times over drinks, but there are drinks involved, so I don't know if I quite remember the answer. But what was the first DC comic book that you fell in love with? Not like the first one that you read, but the first one where you were like focused in, this is for me, diehard DCU for life.
Well, I mean, the book for me, growing up in New York City, I was about 10, 11 when Dark Knight Returns came out, and I wasn't supposed to read it. You know, it was like above my pay grade at the time, and it blew my mind, mostly because Batman suddenly felt real and relevant and immediate and alive to me. And growing up in New York in the 80s, you know, the city was kind of in decline. There was a sense of superheroes being silly. There was sort of it was before Batman 1989. You know, there was that sense of just kind of, you know, of irrelevance to them at that time, I think, in some way. And suddenly this book came along that made it feel like Batman was somebody who could come back at any moment and inhabit the city that you knew and feared, you know, and turn it around.
Yeah.
And so that book really, it changed my life, honestly, you know, and it made me want to be a writer and artist. And all the way through college, you know, I wanted to do both. I wanted to be Frank and Mike Mignola. And
have you ever talked about that with Frank, about how basically the streets he was walking when he was making the book were the streets that you were walking when you read the book?
Yeah. In fact, like the art that I have framed here, my favorite, my most prized thing is something Frank gave me. But
dude, show it off.
All right.
Let me see this. I cannot wait. I have to get really close so I get a good look at this.
Check it out. I'll put it close, but it's like Carrie Kelly, Batman.
No,
it's like one of my I know, right? It's like prized possession.
Dude, that's an original. Did he draw that for you?
Yeah, I was lucky enough to get to know Frank. I guess it was probably around 2014 when I was kind of on Batman, and Dan DiDio was kind enough. He knew that I was like the biggest Frank fan in the world, to introduce me. And I remember like vividly, like just yesterday, Dan called me and he was like, "Listen, if you can come into the city like tonight, Frank wants to say hi and wants to talk to you about what he's doing." And I'm like, "Frank who?" He was like, "Frank Miller." And he's like, he wants to meet at a bar in Hell's Kitchen. You know, he still lives in that the studio like that he lived in when he did Dark Knight and the whole thing. It's amazing. And he wants to talk about Batman, and he likes, you know, what you're doing and that stuff. And I was like, literally, like, just almost dropped the phone, you know, crying.
Yeah.
Just, you know. And
whatever you're doing, when you get that call, everything in your life and go to the bar to meet Frank Miller.
Oh, exactly. And so I went, and I was waiting with Dan for him. It was me, Dan, and him. And he comes in and he's wearing the fedora, and I saw him coming from like, you know, 20 feet away, and it was like tractor beam, just slow-mo, you know, as he walked over. And I was terrified actually, because in, you know, 0 Year was the first time we had redone the origin since year one. And I had been very careful not to redo the origin with the New 52 because I felt year one still fit. And then as the New 52 had progressed, it became something where it was clear that the origin from year one couldn't fit anymore, just because Barbara Gordon had a different background, you know, Jim Gordon, Selena. So it just, you know, they eventually said, "Listen, we have to do a new one." And so I was scared that he'd come in and be like, "You rewrote it," and whatever. And he walked up to me, and literally the first words he said to me, he was like, "So I've been reading your origin," and he's like, "Finally, somebody gave Bruce Wayne a good goddamn haircut." And because he had a buzz cut, he had like this army cut and the thing, and I was like, "Can I just put that on my tombstone and retire now?" Whatever. It was like, Scott Snyder gave Bruce Wayne a good goddamn haircut. Frank Miller out. So
Frank Miller.
Yeah, and so no, but that book it really did change my life. I've been lucky enough to become friends with Frank in the intervening years, and you know, he's somebody who really is extremely encouraging to young creators coming in, and you know, he's been wonderful to me, and I give him a tremendous amount of credit.
Amazing. All right, dude, let's talk about death metal. I know this is on your mind a lot. We talked a lot about metal when you were developing the original, and I know how much thought and care and like creative anguish went into that to make it as good and as big and as bombastic as it was. What has it been like working on death metal?
That's a great question. It's funny because you and I have a friendship where you really were there for like the whole thing. So it's funny.
I saw a lot of that. Yeah.
So for fans out there, the way that we originally pitched metal was that if it worked, because it was sort of a crazy idea to go back to this sort of over the top bombastic kind of cosmic explosive fun. If we were going to do that and it worked, then it was sort of the opening shot of a saga that would go for a couple years and then culminate in something even bigger that would give us the opportunity to connect a lot of disparate elements of DC mythology. So luckily, you guys just went above and beyond, fans, and supported metal in a way that we never expected. It got Dan DiDio wearing, metal hair metal wigs and inflatable guitars, and Jim Lee too, and it was a blast. So all of this stuff that we've been building along the way, Justice League, what I did on Justice League, what Josh Williamson has been doing on Batman, Superman, what James Tynion did on Justice League Dark, and also with Hell Arisen, Year of the Villain. A lot of this stuff has been sort of supportive and sort of intertwined, almost like a triple, quadruple helix structure storytelling to eventually give you something that would bring everything together, and not just our stories, but that would go back the way metal did to the great DC stories of the past. Part of the fun of it is that you can read it on its own, or you can see it as part of the DCU. But what we want to do with death metal, and what was always the plan, was to take sort of elements of the stories that fans love and that should be impactful to the DCU and bring them all into one big connective story. So what Dr. Manhattan did in Doomsday Clock, what's been happening in Leviathan, what happened all the way back to Crisis on Infinite Earths through multiple crises is all referenced in death metal. So that's how you make it bigger. To me, the point wasn't to make like more evil Batman or more, we did. There's many more. There's hundreds of evil Batman in this, and there's
we made a lot of them.
All that stuff is in there. It's definitely like a rock. It's like a rock party out of control in the desert, Burning Man. Like apocalyptic celebration. But that said, it's really at heart, for me, a personal story that says all of DC history, everything that you've read over the years will be rewarded. That it's one giant story, no matter how far away we get from each other, even if we wind up separating on certain books when they should be closer together, even if you read something that didn't connect, we're all part of one big generational story. And it's a message that I feel is really resonant right now. We're at a moment when we're all alone. We're isolated, because of what's going on in the world. And I think also just because that's the way it was before we actually had to hunker down. There was a sense of divisiveness. And what metal was about, because there was a moment like that then in 2017, and what death metal is about now, I think, is that a sense of the real heroism and what our superheroes stand for is a recognition of humility and a sense of being small and sacrificing the way doctors do, the way people on the front lines now, the way we all are for the greater good. And that's what death metal is about. It's saying every story that you've read matters, every little action matters, everything is resonant, everything has repercussions, everything is legacy. And we want it to be one story that says we're all in it together, and our heroes remind us of that. That's what it's about. Yeah. So that's my long corn maze of an answer for your
That's all right. I know it's been on your mind for a long time, so I like to hear all of it.
I've only been talking to children. That's it. I talk only to my children. So having an adult anywhere, I'm just you cannot stop me from talking.
Dude, something I've heard you say a lot, I don't think people fully comprehended or they haven't processed it yet, is that death metal is a Wonder Woman story. Isn't that right?
Yeah, it is. Yeah.
Well, tell us about why Wonder Woman, why now, and why is this a character that you felt like you had to put in the center of this big story?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. Well, I've been dying to do a big Diana story since I started at DC. But Diana has been the one that Greg and I have been kind of circling a long time, trying to find the right story for. And the reason that I really felt that this one was her story is that it's a story about truth. It's a story about sort of two competing truths, right? So death metal, on the one hand, is just out of control fun. Wait till you see. It opens in a way where you suddenly realize the Batman who laughs has won. He's taken over the world with multiple Dark Knights, and there's so many fun new evil Batman you can barely keep track of them. One of them is what if Bruce Wayne, upon his death, uploaded his consciousness into the robot dinosaur in the cave, and then it went berserk. So there's a robot dinosaur Batman. There is an Etrigan demon Batman. There is a evil baby Batman. There was a dark side Batman. There's a sorcerer Batman. I could just go on and on. And they all have like a history and a backstory that we've been working on. So it is like just out of control, sort of bombastic, fun, like just, pyrotechnic rock concert fun. But at the end of the day, it's a story about what if the world changed in a moment, like now, right? And what if suddenly you found yourself in a reality that was darker, where it felt this can't be what's people were telling you. The way to get through this, is essentially to look out for yourself. Only look out for you. The idea is that the thing that's being said that Wonder Woman has to refute is that you never were going to make it if you all banded together. Heroism is a fallacy. You're supposed to just look out for you and the people you care about. And that lie, I think, is something that we all feel deep down at times when we're afraid. You feel like, maybe I should just watch out for me and hoard things and be selfish or that. And instead it's like, or do you recognize that the way to get through this is to be more selfless, to think of the greater story, the greater good. And that's what Wonder Woman is about. From the very first, time that she steps foot off Themyscira, to me, she's about showing mankind that it's not just that she's the hero, but she believes that we have the capacity to be heroes ourselves.
Yeah. Well, dude, that's incredible, because I think that's a really important message. And I have a really important question for you. This is the most important question.
Let's do it.
Which death metal character would you want to have as a roommate, and why?
Wow. Well, right now, Sergeant Rock is a big part of the story. He's sort of I'll give it away, like page 1 is actually Sergeant Rock, like talking directly to you. And he's sort of like, you don't know why. Later you realize why he's doing it. It's not like just like a talk to the camera convention. But it looks like that on the first page, and he's like, all right, people, let's get up. Let's get up and get out there. He's like, it looks terrible. It's this, it's that. And we're all alone and da-da-da, but we're going to do it. And we're going to have some fun. And he picks up this like super space gun, and it's got like multiple guns taped to it. And he's like, let's go do this. And then we turn the page and you get like a million evil Batman, and it starts. And I feel like right now that alarm clock motivation that he brings to the story, where he also, like, there's a secret where you actually realize by the end of the issue that he's I can't give it away. But I won't spoil it. But what you realize about him is that he has no reason to be hopeful, that he is in like the worst shape possible. And yet he's constantly sort of like the big cheerleader of the story. He's like, you can do this. Let's rock. Let's rock. Let's rock. Let's rock. So I would say I could use him, especially when I get up in the morning and my kids are like, we don't want to go to remote school. You know what I mean? I could use a Sergeant Rock to just be like, get downstairs, get on your computers, and let's all do the work we're supposed to do to push this thing forward.
Well, that's very inspiring. I was going to say Big Barda because I need somebody competitive to play video games with, but I guess I will also say Sergeant Rock because that was a nice answer. All right, dude. We're very lucky to be able to talk with the fans right now. Do you have any message for the fans out there doing the same thing? We're all hunkered down together. What do you want to say to them?
Yeah, I just a total message of gratitude, honestly. I think all of us are scared and hopeful and above all determined to make this work. All of us, I think that no matter what, we all know comics will survive because of our collective and individual passion for the art form, for the industry, for retailers, creators, everybody involved. And as tough as it is right now, I just want to say thank you, because the amount of support for the industry we've seen out there, people, stores doing curbside, stores doing delivery, fans finding creative ways to support their favorite books, their favorite publishers, all of it. Seeing people go out and support the industry in ways that just inspire, finding creative ways to get their books, creative ways to put books out. We're all in it together, and we'll find a way through this, and ultimately, like, just a big thank you to everybody that loves comics, is supporting comics, and above all, please stay safe, stay home. Home, stay safe, and on the other side of this, we'll all have a giant new comic book day cheers together.
Oh my God, dude! Can you imagine the conventions on the other side of this?
I know.
One giant party.
I know.
It's gonna be the best.
I know. We will have the biggest single convention bar cheers of all time. It will be there. It will be there. But yeah.
Well, dude, I can't tell you how awesome it is just to see your face and talk with you and talk comics like we always do. It's been a real joy. So thank you so much for being on the show today.
Anytime. Please have me again. I'd love to talk more about American Vampire and all the other stuff we're doing too. So whatever you want.
Awesome. Well, we will definitely take advantage of that offer and wear out our welcome on you.
Great.
The rest of you, please check out Dark Knight's Metal. It's on the service now. Read it so you be prepared this summer for Dark Knight's Death Metal. In the meantime, DCU All-Star Games fans, you gotta check into the community tonight at 7 p.m. Pacific time for a live Q&A with director John Lee Brody. As for us, we'll see you next time. But before we go, here's some tips from some of your favorite Watchmen.
Hi, I'm Wade Deal. Officer Will Reeves here.
Watchmen's favorite stay-at-home dad.
Agent Lori Blake here.
Special Agent LPD. Here to talk to you about washing your dirty hands.
COVID-19 is real. Shelter in place and wash your hands.
Master demands that we wash our hands.
Wash your hands.
You washed your hands? Of course I did. I'm not an idiot. He's the idiot. Sorry, what?
I'm trying to make it last at least 20 seconds.
How do you time 20 seconds? Well, I like to say you're an FBI agent, not the lone ranger, about 8 times.
I'm gonna count to 20 real slow. 1.
Try telling a joke.
And we'll get enough soap to lubricate them well enough so they don't chafe.
Have at it.
Now, let's sing the song Master taught us. Yeah, good idea. Wash your hands.
7, 8.
Knock, knock. Who the hell is there? Get away! I don't want to get sick.
For he's a jolly good fellow.
Lather them up as best you can.
Irresponsible, self-involved.
You're an FBI agent, not the lone ranger?
Front and back and in between.
Squid denying.
11, 12.
Now get out of my study, Mr. Phillips, before I fling you halfway to Ganymede.
Which nobody can deny.
Social distance defying dip.
19, 20. You're done.
And then we rinse.
And dry with a clean towel.
I'm asking all of you as citizens.
Wash your filthy hands and stay the home. It's simple.
And it will save lives.
Stay safe out there.
We're all in this together.
That's how you can stop the spread of coronavirus. Thanks for watching.
We're not one person. We're a community. Look after each other. Wash your hands.